You know those modern roller coasters? The ones that launch you from 0 to over 100 miles an hour in just a blink of an eye? That acceleration is just incredible, right? But what's maybe even more mind-blowing is how they bring that massive speeding train to such a smooth, perfect stop. It's not done with friction, not with brake pads. It's done with something that honestly feels a little bit like magic, an invisible force. So let's break down how they do it.
I mean, that's really the big question, isn't it? It's the magic trick we're going to pull apart today. How in the world do you apply a massive braking force to a 10-ton vehicle that's just screaming down the track, without any friction, without any brake pads, without anything physically making contact? It sounds completely impossible, but the answer is just a really fascinating piece of physics.
So, first, let's ground this in the real world. We're not talking about some abstract theory here. We're talking about some of the most intense and famous rides on the entire planet. Just think about the titans of the amusement park world. I mean, rides like Top Thrill Dragster with its just face-melting launch, or the smooth, powerful curves of Millennium Force, they all share this one incredible secret. They rely on this invisible braking technology to safely handle those insane speeds. And this right here brings us to the most important question of all. It's the one that every single engineer had to solve. See, with an old-school brake, you worry about a mechanical part failing. But with a high-tech system, your first thought is, okay, what happens if the power goes out? The answer is pure genius, but to really get it, we need to dive into the physics.
Okay, so the entire system, the whole shebang, is built on this fascinating principle. It's a phenomenon that creates a powerful, totally invisible force. So let's meet the star of our show, the eddy current.
I know, it sounds super complex, but the basic idea is actually pretty simple. Just imagine moving a sheet of metal, like a copper plate, through a magnetic field. That movement, that change in the field, causes these tiny, circular currents of electricity to start swirling around inside the metal. They look like little whirlpools of energy, and those are eddy currents.
So here's how this actually stops a roller coaster. The coaster has a metal fin attached to it. The track has a row of magnets. As that fin slices through the magnetic field, boom, those eddy currents are created. But here's the magic part. Those swirling currents, they create their own magnetic field. And that new field pushes back against the original magnets, creating this powerful braking force. It's like a kind of magnetic friction, and it all happens without anything ever touching.
What's so incredible about this system is how smart it is. As the quote says, the braking force is tied directly to the speed. The faster the coaster is moving, the stronger the pushback. As it slows down, its braking force gets weaker and weaker until it basically disappears when the train stops. This means the brakes are amazing at bringing a train from 100 miles an hour down to a gentle crawl, but they can't actually hold it perfectly still. But you know, creating this effect isn't just about the physics, it's about the engineering. You can't just use any old piece of metal for that brake fin. The choice of material is absolutely everything. To make this work, you need a material that does two things really well. First, it has to be electrically conductive, so those eddy currents have a place to flow. And second, it has to be non-ferrous, which just means it isn't magnetic itself. And why is that so important? Well, if you use something like iron or steel, the fin would just get sucked onto the powerful track magnets, creating this awful, clunky, grinding mess. So instead, engineers use metals like copper or aluminum.
But not all conductive metals are created equal, not even close. If we say copper is our baseline at 100% conductivity, you can see aluminum is quite a bit lower, around 61%. And brass is way down there at 28%. So the big question is, does this difference actually matter for stopping a coaster?
Oh, it absolutely matters. I mean, this chart makes it crystal clear. The more conductive the material is, the stronger the eddy currents are, and, you guessed it, the stronger the braking force. Copper gives you almost double the braking power of aluminum and way more than brass.
And this graph from a research paper on the topic shows it perfectly. Just look at the curve for copper compared to aluminum. For any given thickness of that brake fin, copper generates way more magnetic drag, way more stopping power. So the choice of material has a huge impact on the performance.
But here's the thing, you can't just keep making the fin thicker and thicker to get more braking power. This graph shows what we call effective thickness. The braking force goes up as you add more metal, sure, but only up to a certain point. After that, adding more metal gives you very little extra benefit, but it adds a ton of cost and weight. So the engineers have to find that perfect sweet spot, just the right thickness to get the job done efficiently.
Okay, so this brings us all the way back around to our big question. We've got the physics, we've got the right materials, but what about that power outage?
This is where the whole design goes from being really clever to being absolutely brilliant. Here it is. The secret is that the system doesn't rely on electromagnets that need to be plugged in. It uses incredibly powerful permanent magnets, often made from rare earth materials. Their magnetic field is just always on. It doesn't matter if the park's power is working or not. That magnetic field is just a basic property of the material itself. The brakes are, by their very nature, always ready to work. They are the ultimate failsafe.
And some rides take this failsafe idea and kick it up another notch in a really cool way. On a coaster like Maverick, the launch track is lined with what are called linear synchronous motors, or LSMs. They're basically a series of electromagnets that push the train forward. But as this quote explains, if the power ever cuts out, those motor coils instantly just become simple pieces of metal. The permanent magnets on the train then create eddy currents in the motor itself, turning the entire launch track into one gigantic emergency brake.
The sheer elegance of this design is that it gets rid of other things that could fail. A ride like this doesn't need that classic clack, clack, clack anti-rollback chain you hear on older coasters. If the power is lost, the train doesn't go careening backwards, it's just gently slowed by the forces of magnetism until it comes to a perfectly safe stop.
Probably the most amazing part of this whole thing is that this massive, complex, high-tech system operates on a principle you can actually demonstrate in your own hands. All you need is a strong magnet and a conductive, non-magnetic pipe, like a simple copper pipe from a hardware store.
When you drop the magnet down through the pipe, it doesn't just clatter to the bottom. It glides. It floats down in what looks like slow motion, without ever even touching the sides. That resistance you're seeing, that's it. That's the eddy currents. That's the very same invisible force that brings a 10-ton roller coaster to a safe and silent stop.
It's just a perfect example of a fundamental law of physics being scaled up to create one of the safest and most reliable braking systems ever designed. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other powerful, invisible forces are all around us, just hiding in plain sight?